It's 12 days into the new year, and I'm wondering, how's that New Year's resolution working out for you? Have you kept one, or is it now just a thought, drifting on the sands of time? What? Why are you all looking at me so funny? Have you never seen a person preach standing on top of a ladder? I mean, really, after 2 years, you wouldn't kind of suspect I might do something a little bit out of the ordinary? Really, I was thinking though this week that New Year's resolutions, they're a lot like this ladder. They give us something, to climb up to and shoot for. But you know what? In the long run, they really aren't always the best thing for us, are they? After all, we can climb the ladder of our resolution, but then what happens when we get to the top? What do? I mean, more often than not, we set our resolutions way up and we climb a rung or two, only to realize that we're never going to get there. And so then we climb back down, defeated and disgusted with ourselves and angry. Having said this, there are all kinds of ladders in our lives, and a lot of them are pretty ugly, just like this one, because our ladders become our priorities of how we are going to live. But they really do nothing to get us to living closer to our faith and our commitment in Jesus Christ. You see, there's basically 2 different ways to live. The first one is the way of performance, or as the Apostle Paul says, it's the way of works. And the other is the way of faith. And the way I see it is that we as Christians find ourselves caught often between living lives of faith and living lives among the ladders of works that the world dictates we climb. And as a result, we find ourselves attempting to straddle between 2 ladders, really not climbing either one very well. Now, on the other hand, according to the Bible, living a life of faith is a huge deal because it means being committed and connected to Jesus in absolutely everything that we do. And it pulls us off the ladders of the world. Now, I believe that most of us search for ways to be committed to Jesus in all that we do, but so often we're challenged by looking to all the wrong ladders. And so we adopt a watered-down, half-hearted version of our faith where our commitment to Jesus is down on the bottom rung. Let me explain. One of the most common ways that we try to validate ourselves and our lives is to say, I'm going to prove that I am a worthy human being by climbing the ladder of success. Or I'm going to climb this ladder or that ladder so that I can impress people and get noticed. Everybody wants to be noticed, don't we? But what happens when we don't make it to the top of the ladder? Or even if you do make it, that feeling of success wears off. Then what do? Find another ladder to climb? Heck, we even give ladders to our kids. We tell them, climb higher and do more. Look at Matthew. He's higher up than you. I don't care that you're only 8. Climb higher. Failure is not an option. And all the while, we're trying to justify ourselves and satisfy our egos. And our life of faith is on the bottom rung. And our children are left lost and afraid. And they don't even know who Jesus really is. You might say it's a little bit like living faith light, only wanting to do what is absolutely necessary to appear like we are committed to Jesus rather than putting him on the top rung. You see, whatever we put on this top rung here, that is what we devote our life to. And if it isn't Jesus, it enslaves us into the wrong thing. And my friends, the Bible has a name for it. It's called sin. Sin is what happens when we put the wrong thing at the top of the ladder. Sin is what happens when we climb and we climb and we climb, and then before we know it, we find ourselves jumping from ladder to ladder, living in and amongst lies and depression and self-centeredness and self-defeat and ego, and we are left standing there feeling unfulfilled. But you know what? It doesn't have to be this way. For in all this darkness, Jesus is here, and he's waiting to save us from the ladders the world wants us to climb. This is not faith. This is works. This is an obstacle that keeps us from living the abundant life that Jesus has promised for all who believe. Faith is not a ladder we climb up for success. Faith is a ladder Jesus climbs down for salvation. Let me say that again. Faith is not a ladder we climb up for success. Faith is a ladder Jesus climbs down for salvation. He comes to us and he says, look, here's the offer. Come to me and I will forgive all your sin. Commit your life to me and I will give you a new start and a purpose in life. My gift is my salvation, and it is beyond anything this world has to offer, and it is free. There's nothing you can do to earn it. There is no worldly ladder you have to climb. Just meet me here, and we're going to start at the water of your baptism. Friends, Jesus didn't get baptized in the Jordan to become a spectacle, to impress people and gain a rung on his own ladder of success. Rather, Jesus was baptized to become one with us so that we could learn what it means to live a life committed to following him. Baptism isn't some magical moment where we ooh and ah and look at the cute little baby as the water's being poured. Baptism isn't a moment that saves us from demons and the hard things in life or meant to bring us good luck. And baptism certainly isn't the pinnacle of our faith. Baptism, it's a gift of grace and commitment, and it is where our faith begins. When Jesus waded into the Jordan that day to be baptized, he was making the commitment to be there for us. He was making the commitment to live how God created him to be, even if it wasn't how everyone else in the world thought he should live. And that's what he calls us to do for ourselves and for our children. Jesus calls us to commit to remember and to live into our baptism every day so that it permeates every aspect of our lives. How we spend our time, how we spend our money, how we use the gifts and talents that God created us and gave to us. How we build upon the past so that we can believe in the future. 20 years ago, a small group of believers began to live into their baptism in new and exciting ways. And we sit here right now because of their commitment to Jesus. They gave us a past to build on by giving more of their time to Jesus' church called Grace than to the other ladders in their lives. They lived into their baptism by giving their talents to physically and financially help build this campus and made growing the spiritual lives of all who set foot on this property a priority. Those people lived into their baptism so Grace would have a future. And guess what? Now it's our turn. How will we live into our baptism to believe in the past and to build the future here at Grace in 2020? Can you imagine how we would grow spiritually if each and every soul committed to worshiping together 3 to 4 times a month rather than the national average of 1.5 times per month? Can you imagine what we could do if we committed time each day to learning the Word of God and teaching it to our children and youth every day so that they would grow up believing that the only thing on the top of the ladder is Jesus? Can you imagine how we would grow as a church family is in 1 year, each of us committed to inviting 6 people to worship with us? In the course of a year, that would be 1,602 new people touched by Jesus here at Grace. Can you imagine how we could touch the community around us if we had more hands to volunteer in mission and outreach projects? Can you imagine what would happen if each of us committed to raising our financial pledge and giving by just 2% and working toward the biblical tithe? That means giving 10% of our income to Jesus and his church rather than what the national average is, which is 2%. With this type of commitment, we would be able to live out our baptism with a fully funded budget, paying all of our bills, growing our outreach, and exploring new and exciting ways to reach people for Jesus. Friends, this is what it means to live into our baptisms for Jesus and his church. These are the ladders that Jesus wants us to climb, for they are the ladder where he is the top rung. Do you remember at the end of the story of Jesus' baptism what happens? Jesus comes up out of the water, and the heavens rip open, and the Spirit of God in the form of a dove comes down, and God's own voice says, "You are my Son, whom I dearly love. In you I am well pleased." Well, friends, God says these same words each and every single time we live into our baptism and turn from the ladders of the world and toward Jesus. And the best part of all this is when we do that, we don't need the ladders of the world anymore. So I guess only 2 questions remain. Starting here and now, what are we letting define us? And how will we commit to living into our baptism in our own lives, in the lives of our kids, and here at Jesus' church called Grace? I can't think of a better name for a church that calls us to live into our baptism than through the waters of his grace. In just a moment, we're going to have the renewal of baptism, and it is open for anyone who has been baptized. As I said earlier, if you are not baptized, that does not mean you can't receive the grace and salvation he has to offer you. Jesus is here right now, and he was baptized for all of us. So while others are coming forward, pray and ask Jesus into your heart and commit your life to him, and then commit to coming to talk to either Pastor Nancy or myself about getting baptized.